Welcome everyone to today's panel. My name is Pata Porcufo and I am the Global Events Manager at Tulip, and I will be your moderator for today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. All right, so as facilities, especially manufacturers, are preparing to return to full operations, teams all over the world are determining how to reopen safely. I'm excited to speak with leaders from companies leading the way in health and safety of workers in facilities. Today, we have four panelists representing Piaggio Fast Forward, Terex, and Becca Limited. First, we have Ryan Harms, who is the VP of People and Operations at Piaggio Fast Forward. She grew her career at tech startups in the Boston area, sized from a dozen people to global companies of hundreds. Her strengths include people and office operations, and she knows what it takes to tackle the gaps in a startup environment and scale their operations successfully. She is passionate about creating and optimizing process, building incredible teams and culture. Next, from Becca Limited, we have Alex Inlaw. Alex Peryaslovitz is a mechatronics engineer on a secondment working with Becca Limited for 2020. Her main body of work within Becca lies in the industrial digital team within virtual reality, site scanning, and cloud-based software development. Alex also does large bodies of work for the industrial mechanical team. Moshe Libby is a digital consultant at Becca Limited who specializes in helping businesses identify new technology trends and turn them into practical and profitable business opportunities. Focus areas include industrial automation, cloud artificial intelligence application, industrial Internet of Things, IoT, and mixed reality applications. And finally, we have Audra Kirkland joining from Terex. Audra is a director of digital manufacturing at Terex, who joined the company in 2019 after spending over 20 years at Jarek Electric Company. During her tenure at GE, she held multiple positions spanning IT, services, quality, and manufacturing. Audra has a Master's of Science in Computer Information Systems and a Bachelor of Science in Secondary Education, specifically mathematics. So thank you, panelists, for joining me today. And Ryan, let's talk about Piaggio Fast Forward. Can you talk a little bit about the company and what your experience was with scaling back and shutting down production at the beginning of the pandemic and how you were able to adjust operations? And let me make sure you're unmuted.
Yeah, so we're a robotics company based in Boston. And similarly to how companies are phasing back into their offices now, we backed out in a similar way where initially it was those who were high risk or took public transportation. Those were the first ones to go remote. Then we had more people working from home as concerns of spread grew. And it got to the point where we as an office in March decided to go to remote to keep people safe and prevent spread. So our production lines in our factory were the last ones for us to ask to be remote and go off site.
And can you talk a little bit about the changes that you had to make in the beginning of the pandemic?
Yeah, so following all the recommendations of CDC as they came out, in the early days, it was a lot of hand washing, not touching your face, no public transportation. Luckily, our manufacturing facility was already largely spread out. We're a smaller amount of employees in a large space. So it was just really making sure we were taking all the steps to limit the spread while we were still on site.
Thank you, Ryan. And now, Audra, could you share your experience with the beginning of the pandemic and what changes you had to make to your operations, and also just talk a little bit about Terex?
Sure. So Terex is actually a very global company, and Genie within also has multiple sites around the globe. So we were able to actually adjust and learn from for instance, our Chinese site was hit first, and that gave us a lot of learnings, and we adjusted and prepared as kind of the virus spread across the globe. We were able to adjust and take those learnings site to site. And so it allowed us to know and be prepared to have more remote workers. before it hit a certain area, and adjust also learning capabilities between the sites.
Now, Alex and Mo, Becca Limited is very different from both Piaggio and Terex. Can you talk a little bit about Becca Limited and how the pandemic affected your clients in the beginning?
Sure thing. So Beca is a products and services company that delivers projects in over 100 countries and deals with more than 280 manufacturers. So we have a very diverse client base. For myself and Mo and the projects we were involved with, we were very involved in the New Zealand side. And New Zealand had a bit of a head start in comparison to other countries because it took a while for the virus to get here. So before the virus pandemic actually hit New Zealand, we already, as Becca Limited, and most of our clients would have had this already, as we had measures in place. So as Ryan mentioned, we also had the wash your hands, keep social distance in the office, and so on. And we started practicing working from home. There were trials run, and a lot of clients did the same thing. So before we went into lockdown, majority of people were already starting to work from home and explore remote working. Um, yeah, and that's about it, really.
So this is a question really for all of you, and anyone can speak to it. Was there anything that surprised you, or is there anything that in the beginning, when the information was still coming out, you would have done differently?
Yeah, I think unlike Alex said, we didn't have a lot of a heads up here in Boston. And so I think I was surprised at how quickly everything escalated. In March, we asked our employees to stay home for 2 weeks at one point. And a week in, we realized we weren't coming back for 2 to 3 months. And that was something that surprised us. It came on fast, and we had to sort of roll with the punches and make it work at that point.
I think on our side, we had similar surprises. It wasn't necessarily the surprise of the longevity of it, I guess, because we had seen it with, by the time it was hitting us in our other sites, we had seen that it was taking a really long time in China. We didn't know if that was because of the fact that, the density in China or what, but we knew it was taking a long time. It helped us to some degree to have that knowledge, but it also, what we learned was the way our equipment is utilized impacted our needs to keep some things like distribution centers open, because we had customers that still had needs due to the way our equipment was utilized versus being able to stay in active production.
And so let's go back to you, Ryan. What did you learn about your operations during this period? What were you doing well before, and were there any areas for improvement?
Yeah, I think we learned in going into this that we were really going to limit things to being absolutely essential. No guests on site, no deliveries we didn't need. One of the first things we had to do was scale back any travel. We as a company didn't travel often, but our CEO is actually based in LA, so he traveled a lot back and forth. And we had a very family style kitchen with lunch meats and sandwich makings and things like that. And so in going back in and in phasing out, we had to start thinking about individualizing that stuff so we could keep people safe and limit like high touch points and the risk of spreading things. So we learned a lot in that aspect, and we were able to follow a lot of the guidelines set forth by the CDC in order to keep our employees safe.
And then I'd like to pose the same question to you, Audra. What did you learn about your operations during this period? I mean, I know that, coming from China to the rest of the world, you did have that head start kind of, but were you able to make any permanent operational changes, or were there any areas for improvement?
So I think we actually changed a lot, and we have a lot of things actually, kind of on the back burner of things that we want to do now that we've seen the ability to work remotely. I think we've been trying to identify now team members that can stay out longer because of the job roles that allow us to facilitate remote work. And we were better at remote working than we even realized. We had the tools and the technologies in place to allow it. A lot of people just weren't comfortable doing it, especially in our manufacturing sites. That has been changing during the time, and I think probably because it has taken the amount of time that it has, um, it's starting to become a norm.
And then Mo and Alex, what were your plans for bringing workers back on site? What were some of the recommendations you've given to ensure a safe workplace?
We actually followed the New Zealand Ministry of Health recommendations, starting with, I guess, recommendations about the number of people on site, the number of people that are allowed within a certain zone on sites, as well as tracing and cleaning requirements. So we're lucky enough to have a health and safety team. There's a lot of experts in there that were able to help us guide our clients, and both internally and externally work with them around some of these requirements.
And then Audra, let's go back a little bit. Did you end up shutting down or scaling back your productions? And what also were your plans for bringing workers back on site? And what are some of the steps that you've taken to ensure a safe workplace?
Yeah, so all of our production sites eventually shut down completely. We only had a couple of main distribution sites still open during kind of the height of each of the areas, I would say. Um, so yes, we did actually shut them down, and it was phased. It was a phased shutdown and a phased, and it's going to be a phased ramp up. We are active in some sites right now, but it's not 100% except for in Changzhou in China. So that site ramped up first to 100%. It's already at 100%. They are full production, running every day. But it's because of the timing of the virus. So as they were able to see their progressions go down, they were able to ramp their production back up. It was phased, though. Only those people who were within the town that had, that met all the guidelines were able to go in first because they couldn't travel from other regions. It's much like other countries are doing. So I think a lot of us are seeing the same things. It's just if you have a site in China, you probably saw them first.
Okay, and let's talk a little bit about technology. So how does technology fit into your plans to reopen, Andra?
So we've actually been doing a lot of work with both the questionnaires and evolving the questionnaires over time. So we've been really excited about utilizing the Tulip bundle actually because of the fact that it is very easy to change, and the questions and needs are changing every day, it seems like. So as those things are changing, so also are our apps for guiding the right questions to be answered by our team members. Sorry, I was just going to say we've also evolved. In some places we have actual people doing the temperature checks, and we have apps for that. And in other places we actually have automated temperature checkers. So technology is really, the more we can evolve it in helping us with the process, the more we feel like we ramp up faster without having to have people standing in line close to each other just to get in the door. So that's a lot of what we're looking at right now.
Great. And then Ryan, let's talk about your plans for bringing workers back on site. What are some of the steps that you've taken to ensure a safe workplace?
Yeah, similarly, we're following a lot of the new guideline protocols: masks, extra sanitizing, social distancing, limiting capacities, and only focusing on essential functions. We eliminated our common areas, any unnecessary deliveries, no guests. We've also instituted curfews in our office. We tended to have a lot of people that like to work late, but we've asked them to leave by a certain time so that our cleaning crews can come in and really sanitize all of our high touch contact points and make sure the office is clean for our employees as they come in the next day. So as we're phasing employees back in, we're making sure that all of those steps are being taken.
And then how are you incorporating technology into these plans?
We are definitely using communication tools more like Zoom and Slack. We had Zoom before, but we never used it. We really prided our company on having employees be on site and collaborating in person. And like Audra was saying earlier, we were surprised at how well people adapted to being a remote. Um, and even just doing virtual events on top of meetings, things like that, to really keep that collaborative vibe going. And then we've also been utilizing the Tulip COVID bundle at all of our entryways in our offices. So we have 2 facilities with 3 checkpoints now at them. And so not only does it allow our employees to pre-screen for symptoms and manage our capacities, but it also does give us a platform for contact tracing, and we have integrated the automatic temperature screening as well. So we don't have to have an employee sitting at the door screening every single person coming in and then themselves being put at high risk for coming into contact with so many people. So that bundle really answered a lot of questions we had into how were we going to do this. It provided so many solutions for us.
And then Mo and Alex, let's also talk about how technology has helped you to get your clients back up and running.
Yep. So being part of the technology team, we naturally got together when level 4 started, or when actually level 3 started in New Zealand, and we knew that there were going to be restrictions on the number of people on site, and we collated all of the internal documents that we had around remote working, utilizing technology like remote assist and other augmented reality technologies, digital apps, and a few other things, and published all of it for free on our website and our LinkedIn. So that was the first thing. We also started thinking about the project that we're delivering at the moment as Becca. How do we support our internal teams deliver those projects effectively? New Zealand had a travel ban, so pretty quickly you lost a lot of the experts that used to come from overseas into the country to help. So we've started with this, and that actually had a lot of traction. People were genuinely, pleased to see that the variety of options, from do nothing or a very small investment to extreme technology options, but that comes with lots of benefits. And I guess 2 of the main things that we found that were extremely useful and were very popular both internally and externally were augmented reality and Tulip apps. So the Tulip app bundle, which Alex will talk about shortly, was very useful in adapting to different client needs. So some clients had very specific needs, very specific health and safety questions. And the really good thing about the Tulip app is that you're able to configure it pretty quickly, and you can change it to the needs. Speed is actually the other thing. With moving between levels relatively quickly, although we knew it was coming, we were able to change the requirements overnight, and we were able to adapt pretty fast, I would say.
And then Alex, you wanted to talk a little bit more about the Tulip bundle?
Please. So we had several large clients use the Tulip app as well. And so we had large production companies, we had large construction, and we even had government agencies. And as Mo mentioned, Tulip allowed us to customize and adapt based on client needs. So some of our clients had things such as employees fill out a questionnaire before they come onto site, and it tells them whether they're eligible to come to site or not. We had security guards scanning, we had tracking of where they're moving, and we had personal check-in ones. So someone has a phone and they select what zone they're entering. I saw a question pop up in the Q&A about the sort of questions we were asking. And I don't know about Ryan and Audra, but for us, our questions were mostly around, have you been feeling sick? Have you been tested for COVID-19? Do you or any of your family members are of an age or have any immunocompromised issues that could cause potential issues? So all of these questions, not all of them barred you from entry, but it let the managers know these are the people that you need to contact quickly or that you need to take special measures around. As Mo mentioned before as well, with the customizable, so Ryan and Audra, you seem to have a good experience with your people taking on the remote working. We had a few difficulties. For example, some clients had employees that didn't have phones. which caused issues. And the positive of Tulip is how quickly it is adaptable and how things can be changed to allow everyone to use it. And also, the Tulip staff were incredibly supportive in allowing us to make these changes.
Great. And then Andra and Ryan, do you also want to talk a little bit about the type of questions your apps were asking as well?
Yeah, so our questions are really adapted from the CDC guideline questions. So literally, and those change regularly. So as they change, we actually update and adapt to them. So that's really where our guidance comes from.
Yeah, similarly, we're screening for COVID-19 symptoms. Those are the majority of our questions. And then as well, it keeps track of what facility and location you're in.
Great. And then one concern we've heard is that many of the methods that are meant to protect workers' health might expose them to risk. And I know one of the attendees had a question. Did you guys collaborate with HR and security on the questionnaires and the aspects of the Tulip bundle? And what kind of data and privacy and employee considerations did you keep in mind?
So I know that we had a lot of discussions with HR, with our health and safety leaders, who also, went through CDC guidelines at length, and we also had data privacy teams working with us for ensuring, because we are such a global company, we tried to make sure, and so we edited the COVID bundle a lot, actually. But that's the great thing about Tulip apps is you can build them to be what you need them to be, and you can take a starter and make it your own. And that's really what we had to do. So we had to strip out a lot of the personalization parts of Tulip in order to kind of meet those data privacy needs. We did not store anything that was identifiable as the type of symptom, for instance. We didn't want to know those things. We just wanted to know that that some threshold had been crossed, basically. So we did a lot of work with health and safety, with data privacy folks, and with HR to ensure that we were not violating anybody's privacy.
Ryan, Alex, or Mo, what were your experiences with the same kind of situation?
If I can add, we actually had one of our clients was a government agency, and they had really particular requirements around the data we collect and how long we collect it for, and who has access to it. And as Audra said, that was amazing that Tulip was really adaptable, that we were able to go and configure the platform to match those needs. And also, before we deployed any app, we actually worked with the legal team and the health and safety team to make sure that we are correct, collecting the right information in a correct manner as such. Health biometric information such as temperature, for example, for some sites wasn't a preferred method, and they just wanted to, instead of actually recording temperature, they wanted to ask you the question of, do you have fever, which is fine. We adapted the apps to match that as well. But generally, in terms of privacy, the concerns have been, I would say the concerns have been valid, but at the same time, we were able to change the various tools to match those concerns.
And Ryan, can you talk a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, as a VP of people, this was one of my first questions, is who is seeing this information? And so I shout out to Gio, worked with Gio a lot, and said, who is seeing this? He showed me exactly how to make it sure I was the only one that would be getting the flagged messages if somebody, screened for fever or had symptoms and was flagged in that sort of way. In addition to just prepping our managers on how to handle these situations if an employee did tell them that they had tested positive for COVID. We want to let our employees know so that they can take the right measures for them as well. But just reminding them that you can't disclose any names and that you have to protect the employee's privacy as well.
Great. And then I just want to remind the audience that you can submit any questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. But this, again, is a question to anybody, but what kinds of opportunities do you believe that companies have to improve processes and systems?
I can.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. So a big thing that a lot of our clients found, as I mentioned previously, is that they weren't, on the leading edge of technology and digital, in the digital world. And so we're seeing a lot of clients invest in digital technologies and start creating a roadmap with resilience factors. So they're looking at where they want to be and what gaps they have, and we're helping them figure out how to bridge those gaps. A lot of technologies as well that we've deployed during COVID, such as the Tulip apps, have further use going forward in the pandemic-free world. So, for example, the COVID Tulip apps can be used for things such as timesheeting. So, who's on site when, what contractors are there, what zones are they mostly working in, and also can be used for things such as emergencies. So if there's a fire on site, you don't have to guess who is in this particular zone. You actually know, oh, let's look at the Tulip app, these people are here now. And so there are lots of ways that these technologies can be used in novel ways.
So from our perspective, one of the things that has come up has been really the need to be able to utilize work instructions instead of big paper books that are generally utilized for work instructions, to actually build them into the Tulip platform so that we can actually have people trained when we normally have peer training, and people are very close in proximity when they do that. So by having the work instructions in the Tulip app, we're really hoping for more of a guided training or guided work approach, where they're going to learn on the job as they're doing the work, but through a guided process without a human having to be right next to them. And so it's really it's been eye-opening on how we can utilize the technology to limit exposure in the future, now that we know what the future may hold, I guess. We're more apt to be thinking about those things right now.
Great. And Ryan, do you have anything to share about how what opportunities companies had to improve processes, and maybe also just what kinds of steps are you taking to improve resilience moving forward?
Sure. One thing that I've been continually impressed with is how naturally resilient I've seen our employees be during this time. They're just making it work whatever way they can. As we were back on site as of June 1st, but not everyone's back on site. So we had some of our engineers working with some of our production supervisors on the line, zooming in. The VP of engineering from 6 feet away was another employee holding the computer trying to troubleshoot something on the line. And so I'm continually just impressed and amazed by our team. But I think at the beginning of all of this too, when a lot of people sort of had to take a step back and take their employees remote and be off site, we spent the first few weeks documenting processes that we hadn't had time to do, really thinking about what our next steps would be and pivoting our game plan and coming back with a path that we knew we wanted to forge. And so I think being proactive in that way, as soon as we were offsite, we were already thinking about what does it look like when we come back and how do we come back strong. And I think that's gone a long way within our company.
And then you talk a little bit about your interactions with your employees and how really resilient they were. So now that shutting and reopening factories has put humans in the center of the conversation, in manufacturing, what have you learned in the last 3 months about the place of humans in your operations?
Yeah.
Perspective changed.
I think that's a fair question. We're a robotics company, so we get this question a lot. And we've always believed that robots complement humans, not replace them. And I think as a testament to that, our production and manufacturing lines were the last ones out during this time and the first ones back in. So if that doesn't tell us how essential these employees are to us and how essential these humans are being on site is, then I mean, I don't know how to paint a better picture than that. They're absolutely essential in the center of our workers and our companies.
And Audra, can you talk a little bit about your experience and what you've learned in the last 3 months about the place of humans in your operations?
I just couldn't agree more with what she said. Honestly, our team members have always been the center for us, and this has highlighted it. We just want, but it has brought about ideas of how we make them safer. How do we help make sure that we can utilize technology to enable them to make them safer? And that is really our goal right now in the company, is how do we continue to transform technology to enable the human, because our team members are always going to be the most critical.
And this is for anybody to answer. I know somebody asked a question, but what feedback? What has the feedback been from your employees using the apps? And are there any other tools that you're using to make your facility safer for employees right now?
I could answer that. So we've taken an agile approach with a lot of the development that we've done for the apps, and we on purpose selected very few select group to start with to be testing the apps. And in the beginning, people would say things like the button is too small. I can't press on this. I can't read this text. And again, Tulip being very adaptable, we were able to change it on the fly. So we had those feedback sessions every now and again at 30, 60, and 90% of the delivery of the app to make sure that we are aligning to the feedback. We've also tried to get different demographics testing the apps, different ages and different sites and different kinds of jobs. I would say mostly been extremely positive. People understand why, especially if you put the reason why in the app itself, and we're collecting this for your benefit. It's been a very good feedback.
I would actually say as someone who has rolled out a lot of platforms and walked through a lot of implementations, I really thought I was going to have a lot of questions and maybe even some technical difficulties with my employees using this platform. And I was actually emailing with Gio this morning. He checked in on me and I was like, it's been crickets. Like, it's been so easy. I expected a lot of emails and questions, and there's been none. They're using it seamlessly. I sent out instructions once and they're on their way.
That's awesome. And I'm glad to hear it. So we have one more question, Audra, for you. So earlier someone asked that you were talking about the tools that were in place to support remote work and even on manufacturing sites, but people just weren't as comfortable as they probably are now that it's been a while. But
Right.
what recommend to other manufacturers to help drive that culture change and increase comfort, and really what worked for you?
So for us, one of the things was, it wasn't something that, and every organization is different, but for us, it was it's available to all mentality. So when you make things available to all, then it's easier to start driving that collaboration through everybody having the availability of it. I think was the first thing that I saw different in this company, because I am new here, than others. Because in other companies, a lot of times it was office workers had access to stuff that other people didn't. And in Terex and Jeannie specifically, that's just not the way it is. So that's been very beneficial, I think, in allowing it to happen. We also had a lot of time where we helped each other, right? In small groups, we would have discussions, and none of us were the experts because we had just rolled out a new Teams platform, and none of us, even the IT people, didn't know it. So we had to learn it together. And I thought that was actually good, because it's humbling when all team members are at the same level with technology. Then nobody's the expert, nobody's telling you, that you're not doing it right. So then everybody's open.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone for joining us. Do any of your panelists, do you guys have any final thoughts about your experience?
I just a last comment. Technology used to be, or some parts of technology used to be a luxury or a nice to have for a lot of our clients and for us at Becca. But through COVID, I think it's extremely clear now that if you haven't invested in digital technologies and in the core remote working and all of the other different types, it has become a must-have. So that change in culture and in mindset has become really eye-opening for us.
And there are a lot of positives to it in the long term after the pandemic as well. And that's it. We're saving the world is an exaggeration, but we're reducing printing, we're reducing travel and the carbon footprint of the world. There's so many things that we can do with technology and remote expertise that we couldn't um, do before. So, yeah, technology is the future.
Technology is the future. Such a great closing. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Audra. Thank you, Alex, Ryan, and Mo for joining us today. And thank you to the attendees as well. This has been recorded, so if you miss part of the beginning, we'll definitely send it out afterwards, and feel free to share it with any of your colleagues who you think would be interested. Yeah, all right. Thank you guys, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.